Yeah, here we go again. You already know what it is. This is Back in the Daze, episode 3. In case y'all haven't heard the first two or you decide to skip ahead and choose the title you like, this is a podcast. It's a personal project that I'm doing. I'm your host, Dante Bailey. And, this is kind of a form of self-therapy, you know? It's something to allow me to go through and explore my memory bank, try to figure out how I got to where I am right now in life. 29 years old. Young in spirit, though. I guess that's why I got confused for a second. 29, turning 30 next year. And, this is 2020, so we done seen it all this year. We done been through the shits, all types of transitions. And, I've been through some major transitions recently. Had a tragic car accident and broke both of my arms. Had a wild semester at school at USC. Crazy timing. And then COVID-19 hit and just had us stuck in the crib, And like a lot of people, I suffer from a lot of anxiety and depression. And then unexpectedly, I went through a breakup, after about 6 years. And, it just puts you in this place where you start analyzing what the fuck is going on, And you need to slow things down sometimes and assess, how did I get where I am? And for me, I think there's no better way than to just talk it out, indulge in it, go back to my memory bank and think about some of those things that shaped me and made me who I am and get back to the basics, And that's what this podcast is all about, getting back to the basics. So this is episode 3 right here. And I want to take y'all back to something that I call Adventure Time. That's the name of this episode, Adventure Time. Because, life is definitely an adventure. And, when you're a kid, the world is just so big. Everything around us is just stands out. It's like so much to explore. And somewhere down the line, society, they stripped that from us. They stripped that imagination that we've had. And it's time to reclaim that. It's time to reclaim that. So put on your seatbelt, buckle up, take the ride, and enjoy. It's adventure time. So I grew up, like I said, in Hyattsville, Maryland. And, one of my most fond memories was being at my grandmother's house all the time, my father's mother, and all of the experiences we had there. And I think I spoke about going to school from her house every morning, walking to school. And it was a lot more to it than just walking to school. Because we used to be out here. If you could imagine the tiniest looking kids, you could barely see over a fence, doing everything they had no business doing. That was us. Me and my brother, man, we used to walk to school together every morning. And, there was a store that was around the way. First of all, one thing about us, we took every opportunity that we had to take an alley to get somewhere. We didn't want to take the normal ways to get places. We wanted the exciting route, the scenic route. So it probably took us a little longer to get anywhere we were supposed to be at. When I tell you it should have taken us 5 to 10 minutes to walk to school and be there on time, and somehow we was always just barely getting in before the bell came on because we took the scenic route and we took 25 minutes to get there. You you can't send no damn kids under 10 years old to just walk to school on their own. They're going to find some shit. And that was our thing. We literally would come out the house when we would leave my grandmother's house. We would walk through the back alley, or we would jump through the break in the gate, and we would go back behind our house. And we had a neighbor, I guess, who lived behind my grandmother's house. His name was Philip. Philip was the baddest little nigga you could imagine. In hindsight, we didn't know. We thought he was just so cool. And he was another kid who was from the city, who moved to Maryland. And, he just he lived with only his grandmother, and his grandmother kind of let him go do whatever he wanted to do. He was off the chain, you know. And I remember Philip had the best toys. Like in his backyard, he had a basketball court, and you know, he had like the little type of car that you could literally sit in and drive. You know, little almost like a remote control type of car or something like that. And you know, we probably didn't even know it was other kids in the neighborhood to hang with until we met Philip. And Philip had us walking all over the neighborhood after school, before school. Didn't matter. He was on some shit like, yeah, man, come on, let's go. And, you know, you might get permission to go to Philip's house. And our grandmother thought we was right behind the crib. We was all over Hydesville. We was walking everywhere. Like, we could have got snatched up or anything, but we was out here exploring, man. And I never forget, we used to take these alleys, like I said. So we would go back through the break in the gate and go get Philip, knock on the door. Hey, is Philip ready to go to school? His grandmother tell him come downstairs and everything like that. He cursed. I didn't know no kids that cursed before. He was in like the 3rd grade when I was in like kindergarten or 1st grade, you know, and my brother was in like the 4th or 5th or something like that, you know, so he was like right in between us. And I remember we used to take these really shady alleys that I just thought was the coolest thing ever, because it was like, you know, all the other kids are walking to school with their book bags on and stuff on the main road. We would always, and I remember he used to give this one crossing guard hell. I don't know why. It's just kids are such little assholes, you know, but it was this one crossing guard who was old, and literally he would always cross the street at the last minute when she wasn't looking before she would tell him to go, just to like get on her nerves. I guess it was just an open form of rebellion. And of course, we was just following along behind him, doing whatever he did. So we probably gave that woman a damn heart attack. She was old as hell, old as death. But she was a nice old lady, you know? And it was just so many alleys in Hydesville. I remember we was going up a hill through some back alley that would take us through an open parking lot to St. Jerome's, which is a school that my cousins went to as a private school. I ended up going there later, like I said. And then we would go through some other back alleys off the way and have to hop through some fences and picking up sticks and kicking rocks along the way and stuff like that. And I remember we did a bunch of different shit. We used to play football and stuff with them and basketball. But one of the most distinct memories was that we were walking one day, and we used to always cut through this one guy's yard. Old white dude, kind of hickish, you know, real like redneck. And he used to get mad, like, you know, stay off my yard, stay off my property, or whatever the case may be. And pretty sure he had dogs and everything. And Philip didn't care. Philip wasn't scared of nobody. So he was like, whatever, you ain't gonna do nothing. And it started becoming a thing. Like, he would intentionally cut through this dude's yard just to get a reaction out of him. And I remember one morning in particular, here was me and my brother and Philip, and we're walking through this alley, and we start to cut through his yard. And this one day, he's in his truck. I mean, some sort of beat down old rugged pickup truck. And this man goes, revving up the engine. So we looking at him like, oh shit, like what's he gonna do? Philip looks at us, we look at Philip, we sitting there kind of frozen in the alley. The alley is narrow too, so it's not like you have any space on the side to kind of move to the side of a car wanted to drive past. That car gonna run right over you. And Philip looks at this driver dead in the eyes and throws up 2 middle fingers. Keep in mind, this is a fucking 3rd grader, you know what I'm saying? Throws up 2 middle fingers, and this nigga floors it. Now, I'm sure, once again, thinking in hindsight, there's no way he could have floored it because we weren't that damn fast. But he definitely was pushing up on our heels however fast we was running. I'm sure we was running way faster than the average kids. he was on our heels, like to the point where if one of us would have tripped, he definitely would have ran us over with the car, and that would have been a murder. No exaggeration. But he was up on our heels, and we was running and running and running for our lives. Like, oh shit, oh shit. That's all I remember Philip saying the whole time. Oh shit, oh shit. And I was saying there like, yo, what the fuck? Oh my God, we're gonna die. So we just had to make it to the one part where there was a little cut that we could break off to the side where, you know, the car would have had to keep going past us. So he was running. And then my brother and Philip were way faster than me, but I guess my brother was looking out, obviously. He couldn't leave me behind too far. So we were running. They cut off to the side, and they jumping over the fence to the private school, I guess, where it was like pre-K for this Catholic school used to go out there and play, and they had like a morning kind of, you know, they you know, you have aftercare at school. They had before care as well for like when parents had to drop off their kids early. So they was out there in this before care, and I'm talking about this is, now that I remember this is actually daycare, because I ended up going to the school later. So these are like 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and stuff like that. Like, it really wasn't no like kids our age. And we jump in this fence, and there's a nun out there. There's a lady named Sister Mary. She was the meanest nun ever. I only ended up knowing who she was because I went to the school later, and I hated her. She was really like an old witch. Like, but she was just, you knew when she looked at you, it was like you was in trouble. We didn't even go to the school, and we knew to be afraid of her. It was wild. It was some weird things. We used to jump that fence too, and she would get mad, like, stay off here. You need to get out of here, whatever. And of course, Philip was disrespectful to her. But this one day, we didn't have a choice. This dude was up on our heels. So we done damn jumped the fence, and I got stuck on the fence, and my brother had to come and pull my book bag off of the thing, and we're running through, and literally Philip's running to him, move. Little pushing little kids out the way, pushing 3 and 4-year-olds out the way. Running through the goddamn playground area of this daycare. Oh, it was so ghetto. It was so bad. 0 out of 10 would recommend to a friend. Very ghetto, very ghetto. But we was rushing through, and I remember, and I hope I'm not making this up because it's too funny of a moment. And I really hope I'm not just being a storyteller right now, because I vividly remember this. I remember Sister Mary was walking over to try to like get in the way and stop us or whatever the case may be. And Philip was running, and he pushed her and said, move, bitch. And I hope my brother ends up listening to this shit so he can confirm if I'm making this up or not, because I swear in my head, this is exactly what happened. And it was so fucking funny. We're running, or whatever the case may be. And I also remember that my cousin Nicole, so, you know, my cousin Rashid is my favorite cousin. I'm always talking about, you know, growing up with that being my favorite cousin. But my cousin Nicole worked at the daycare, like, as, because she was a 5th grader at the time, I believe, and my brother was like a 4th grader. And she went to St. Jerome. So her and my other cousin went to St. Jerome's at that time when we was going to Highsville Elementary. The two schools were literally right across the street from each other. And I guess somehow, I don't know if they recognized us as being their cousins or how she found out, but we ended up kind of getting a message back door through Nicole, like, y'all got to stop doing that. Like, y'all got to stop coming through here or whatever. And kind of like, you know, like, your friend is disrespectful type shit. Like, and eventually we stopped cutting through the school because we didn't want to get in trouble. And I guess it had kind of got back to their parents or something like that. I don't know how it happened, but either way, we were definitely followers. Like, or at least, I don't know. I was following my brother because that's what my parents told me to do. And my brother was following Philip because he was a follower. I don't know. Sorry, Rob, if you listen to this. But we was kids. So yeah, it's like some follower ass shit. Like, this dude was stupid. He was making dumb decisions. So we was right there along with him, I guess, because it was fun. It was fun. But you know, that was a thing. Like, we really used to be out here running all around and shit. And I remember Philip got us into another situation. We ended up getting probably the worst ass whoopings of our lives because of Philip. And I tell you what, I still to this day feel like I need a refund on that ass whooping because that wasn't fair. It wasn't my fucking fault. But I never forget. So, Hyattsville Elementary used to also have a summer camp, right? So during the summer vacations or whatever the case may be, we used to just go to my grandmother's house for the summer, and we was excited about that. I loved that. I was like, shit, we don't need to go to no damn summer camp. Like, what? Like, we go to grandma's house, chill out all day. That's the best place in the world. But I think my parents just wanted us to stay active and doing something, like interacting with other children. And not, if we was at my grandmother's house, we was going to sit in the house all day and watch TV and play video games. That we wasn't going to do shit. We wasn't going to do nothing. Guarantee it. And, our parents was trying to be responsible parents. So they wanted us to be doing active things. We used to go to the pool like once a week or something at the summer camp. And, we had little field trips and obviously, recess and all these different kind of things. They had other little educational things, but it wasn't like school. But that's how I felt like I was getting duped out of my summer because I'm so used to every summer going to my grandmother's house or staying at home with my oldest brother, Ahmad. He used to watch both of us. So, I'm like, damn, y'all got us doing it. Like, why do we got to do this? Like, we thought that was corny. Like, all the other little kids had to go to summer camp because they wanted to be in some. We was trying to be cool. We was like, man, we out the way. And, but it was a little more sweet because Philip was going to go. So we was like, well, shit, man, if Philip going, we good. We'll make it work. And, we must have only been in that camp about a week, 2 weeks max, and we were going on a Friday field trip to the pool, which was right up the street. It was the rec center over there in Hyattsville, which was really like right up the street from our house, like walking distance from our house. It was closer to where we lived in Brentwood than it was the actual, school. And I remember we was walking to the school, and Philip's like, oh yeah, I forgot my swimming trunks. We had just got there too. So he was like, yeah, I forgot my swimming trunks at the house. I'm going to go back and get them. And I guess Philip must have gotten permission from the summer camp counselors to walk back to his house to get the swimming trunks because he lived right up the street. Like, he lived right behind us, just like we lived right up the street, right? I guess he must have, I don't know if they contacted his grandmother or what, but either way, he had permission. We did not have permission. My brother, my middle brother, Rob, and I, we was just following along. So I remember I was sitting there and my brother was like, I'm going back to Philip's house. And I was like, why? He was like, he forgot his swimming trunks. I'm just going to walk with him. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, you coming? And I'm like, do we have permission? And he's like, are you coming or not? And I'm like, but did you ask? Like, he's like, man, we go to court. Like, we live right there. We live right next to him. So he's just kind of like, we're good. Like, come on, either you coming or not. Do you want to be stuck here with these kids you don't even like, or are you staying? Like, what's the problem? Like, make a decision. That's how, I don't know. That's how my brother used to do me when we was little. It was very like, look, I already don't want you tagging along, but this is a mutual friend. So either you coming or you not. Like, I'm not waiting up. So as a kid, I'm like, fuck it. I'm going. Like, wherever my brother's going, I guess I'm sticking with you. Like, that's what my parents told me to do. Stick with my brother. He's the boss. He's older than me, barely older than me, but he's older than me. So if he says we leaving, we leaving. So I follow him back. And, oh, matter of fact, I had forgot my swimming trunks too. But the difference was my grandmother was going to bring them to the school for us. But Philip was walking back to get his. So I think the logic behind it was we'll just walk back and get ours too. But we didn't have that permission. Not officially, at least. So here we are walking back to get the trunks. And of course, we take all of the back roads. We taking the alleys to get there, and we done made side stops, and he wants to show us shit along the way. Then he actually gets the swimming trunks. But of course, before we leave to go back and get the swimming trunks, he wants to show us his video game. And it's some drive-in video game on N64 that had the actual steering wheel and the little pedals that you could get instead of just the controller. And you know, we was poor, so we had never seen that type of shit. We like, oh shit, he got the actual steering wheel. That's crazy. Like, you know, but the whole time I'm anxious. I'm kind of like, we probably need to get back to school. Like, I've always been that way. Like, we're going to get in trouble. And I'm sitting there, I'm really sitting there like, but I'm also kind of just having fun. Then we start walking back to school. And of course, once again, we taking alleyways and back ways and stuff like that. And then Philip says, I want some candy and some fries. Let's go to Franklin's. So now, keep in mind the whole time, he's on roller skates and he got his swimming trunks and his book bag and all types of shit and everything like that. Now we go on to Franklin's, and Franklin's is this little candy. Well, it was really a restaurant that was like right around the corner from the school. It's like maybe a couple blocks away or whatever the case may be. But there was a super busy major road right there, and it's not like we was crossing the street with adults, and we was little ass kids and shit, but we knew how to watch the street signs and stuff like that. So he goes in there and he orders some fries, and I mean, they had the biggest candy selection you could ever imagine. I remember I loved rock candy, and I think I had like $1 or $2, but in there you could get like 8 rock candies for $1. I was excited, and you know, we sitting there walking back, and we got candy, and he got French fries, and he's sharing French fries with us, and we're walking, and it's just seeming like the best morning ever. We done lost track of time. We done been gone for about at least 30 minutes to an hour or something, like wild. And we live 10 minutes away from the crib, from the school. So even if he had permission, he was definitely supposed to be back in like 20 minutes. It's been like an hour. We done gone on a whole adventure all across the damn city. So by the time we're walking back, we finally get to the bottom of a hill walking up towards the school, and a police officer pulls up next to us. And he's looking at us, and he starts laughing. And we're like, because, you know, you taught about police from young, like, be careful. So we're looking like, good morning, can I help you? You know? And he's like, you boys' last name wouldn't happen to be Bailey, would it? And we was like, yeah. And he just started laughing, and he was just like, yeah, you might want to hurry up and get up the hill to the school. You're in a lot of trouble. And we was like, trouble? And he was just like, yeah, but it's all good now. Don't worry about it. Just hurry up and get to the school. So we sitting there now. My heart is beating fast. Like, Rob, you said we had permission. So we get there, and my grandmother is at the damn school. Oh my God, I was sick. And she was like, where were you guys? We were worried, sick, this and that. She had my swimming trunks in a bag. She had came to drop them off. We never even stopped at our house. That's the thing. We was having such a good time. We never even went to the house, to my grandmother's house, to get the swimming trunks. It was like we was just tagging along with Philip. We got back to the damn school. She was up there. She was mad. We was in so much trouble. They told us we couldn't go on the trip. Matter of fact, they kicked us out the summer camp. We was suspended. We were suspended from the summer camp as supposed to be for like a week, and then they ended up suspending us indefinitely. So we couldn't come back. And, you know, that was embarrassing for my parents and everything like that. But more than anything, I'm sure it was inconvenient for my parents because, you know, they was trying to keep us out the way. Now, granted, to some degree, a small degree in hindsight, it was a win-win because we still got to go to my grandmother's house and, and, you know, chill out for the summer the way we wanted to. But when I tell you, Philip was like, I don't care. Like, he was just like, he was bad. He was like, I don't care. He walked back home, like, whatever. And they was like, we're going to call your grandmother. And he was like, call her. And we was just like, damn, he's going to get in so much trouble. And we got in trouble. But this is the thing. My father ended up taking us both in the room. and he whooped our asses with the belt. I'm talking about the worst spanking we done ever got. He like hit, and you know, it was I don't know if y'all had them type of black parents who had the worst type of spankings. I mean, like literally they give you a lecture for an hour, you falling asleep in the middle of the lecture, you tired, you like, please don't spank me, I didn't do nothing, this and that, blah blah blah. My brother just sitting there like, man, whatever, I didn't do nothing, you know. But literally talk to you for an hour and then tell you what they about to do, tell you, you know, you're gonna get a spanking, right? And, you know, I do this because I love you and you need to learn a lesson and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And what were you thinking? And you need to learn from this. And you just like, yo, can we just get this shit over with? And then he started whooping my brother, and I'm seeing him, and he's letting him have, he hitting him on the back with the belt and the butt with the belt and all this type of shit. And he just sitting there screaming and crying. And I'm just like, yo, but I didn't even do anything. I didn't even do anything. I followed the rules. Y'all told me to listen to my older brother. He said we were leaving, so I followed him. Why am I getting a spanking for that? And you know what the justification was for me getting a spanking too? It was, well, next time you'll learn to make your own decisions. What is that? I listened to you and I still get my ass whooped? That was some bullshit. I was so mad. And I got the worst spanking I had ever got in my life. And I'm sitting there crying. And you know how they do. My father was a syllable spanker. He was are you gonna listen to him again? And I'm like, no, no. Oh, shit. In 2020, that's child abuse. That's the crazy part. We grew up on spankings and shit like that. But in 2020, that shit not even the norm no more. Like, you whoop your kids and you go into motherfucking child services. It's crazy. But yeah, man, I was so blown about it. And it's just funny because even then, like, you know, that really molded a lot of shit. I remember they couldn't believe that I got a spanker because I was the youngest. And they always acted like I was the favorite or something, you know, like, I can't believe they actually gave you a spanking. And I felt a little salty, like, man, y'all wanted me to get a spanking or something just to know what it felt like. The difference was I wasn't getting in trouble. I wasn't doing nothing to get no spankings. That's y'all. I wasn't doing nothing to get fucked up. So I felt like the only real spanking I got in my life was like unjustified. It was terrible. But, you know, it was what it was. But these type of memories, man, I just, outside of the whooping, the adventure was out of this world. It was like our imagination just ran so free. Like the world was so big and we just had to like explore it, you know? And there were always moments like those. I remember my oldest brother, like I said, he's 11 years older than me. Technically, he is 8 years older than my middle brother. And he used to always be on some sort of mission. He would go to his best friend Milford's house at the time, whatever. And I think they used to call him Fats or something like that. And it's funny because we lived in Brentwood, which it was the hood. I didn't know it was the hood at the time, but it was pretty hood. Now that I'm thinking about it, we didn't have sidewalks or nothing. And but we had the baddest house on the block, so it was different. It was one of them things. Like even if it was hood, we was looking like we was doing good. You feel me? But it was just so funny because he would go and he always, my oldest brother was cool to me because he had a bike. And he had a bike and a basketball, and that's all he used to do. He would play basketball every single day, go out to the court. And, you know, the court was like a sacred place. We wasn't allowed to go to the court. And I guess now that I'm getting older, I realize why we weren't allowed to go to the court. Because, you know, people was on bullshit at the court. It wasn't a place for kids. And my brother was really, really good about keeping us away from shit. As my middle brother started to get older, he started allowing him to come to the court with him, I guess to kind of teach him the ropes. But I was literally always too young to go to the court because I just didn't need to be around there. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because literally, I remember he used to go to this little corner store, little mom and pop shop, little broken down, hurry up and buy ass kind of corner store that was around the way. And they had these little Oreo cookie ice cream sandwiches. And I was so excited as a kid because I remember it looked like an actual Oreo cookie, but it had ice cream in the middle. Oh my God. I was like, when my brother would get me one, I was like, can you buy me one? And you know, my brother, he had he always had a job. That's one thing about my oldest brother. Like, he always found some sort of way to make money because, you know, he liked shoes and clothes and stuff like that. And he got to a certain age and, you know, my parents didn't really buy him school clothes. He bought his own shit, you know, like they would take us shopping for school clothes, but he had to kind of fend for himself. And, but he always kept some money in his pocket. So he would give me like a little ice cream or something like that. My brother always liked like popsicles instead, shit like that. My middle brother. But I just remember those ice cream sandwiches to this day. Whenever I happen to see them in like a little hood corner store, the ice cream sandwiches that look like a Oreo, I always get this nostalgic feeling like, God damn, man, life was simple. I remember this. This was crazy, you know? But even going around the way around the corner, because we really wasn't allowed to walk around the neighborhood where we lived at back then. We was allowed to go across the street to our friends as our neighbors, Brian and Angela. I don't even remember what they look like nowadays. I just remember they had a Sega, and that was cool because, you know, we had a Super Nintendo and regular Nintendo, you know, just the original OG Nintendo. This was all before N64 had come out. Actually, N64 came out around that same time, and that shit was crazy. That's a whole different story. But it was funny because we used to go over there, and that was like an adventure in itself because it was just a different house, like a different territory that we could go to. We used to have to just see when they was home. I feel like they was twins. It was a brother and sister. I don't remember, but you know, we'd have to go and ask and knock on the door, and Brian and Angela come out and play. Or sometimes we would go inside every once in a while and play. But outside of that, when we would get out the house, we would go with my oldest brother. And even though we wasn't allowed at the court, sometimes we would be allowed to go over to his best friend's house with him or whatever. And I remember all types of random things. Like, I remember one time they were taking hostages. It was so random, man. Like, him and his best friend was kidnapping me and my brother. It's like they had teams or something like that. And they was shooting water guns off in the house at each other and stuff like that. And I was on the walkie-talkie trying to report to my oldest brother. And next thing you know, Milford came and kidnapped me. And then Ahmad came and kidnapped Rob. That's just my older brother. And then they was trying to do like a hostage trade-off and some other stuff. It was just fun. It was like all types of random shit. I remember I accidentally touched this cactus and pricked myself. It was wild. It was exciting, you know, but I think about things like that nowadays because as an adult, I'm also putting time frames together, and I'm thinking about how much of a good big brother my oldest brother was, for the fact that we could have fun doing stuff like that. Like, I remember Milford would ride a bike and my brother would ride a bike, and one of us would get on the back of one and one of us would get on the back of the other. And I always wanted to ride on my brother's bike, not Milford's, because I was like, I don't know that nigga, you know. He may be your best friend, but he's mean. He's always making jokes about me. I want to ride with my big brother. And it's funny because my oldest brother always made me feel safe. He always made me feel comforted, you know, no matter what was going on and shit like that. And when I got older, maybe around like 19 or 20 or something like that, you know, old enough to drive, I remember I used to go and visit him sometimes at his apartment. By this time, he's easily in his 30s or whatever, you know. And I was probably older than that. I don't think I'm probably about 23, 22 or something like that. So he was in his 30s, well in his 30s or whatever. And he was telling me some stories about back then, you know, like different things that was going on. And what I remember as the best times and the most nostalgic moments, you know, it was real hood shit going on that I had no clue about. I remember there was a time I was sitting on the porch and he was going to the basketball court. He had came back from the basketball court and he was running back. And he came through the gate and he was like, shit, shit, shit. And I was like, hey. And I was like, where'd you go? And he was like, I was at the court. And then he realized he had to go back. And I was like, can I come? And he was like, stay here. And I was like, please, can I go? He's like, stay here, go in the house. And I was just like, I was sad because I couldn't do anything, whatever. But I didn't know until years later that when he was running back to the house that time, he was at the court. And I guess there was a guy who used to play basketball with his son up there with the rest of them. And I guess his son was a little soft or something, or just not as hard as he wanted him to be. And he used to be in the military and, PTSD, all that type stuff. And, I guess his son didn't call foul. And, on the court, street ball rules is like you call your own fouls. So I guess he got fouled and his father was like, foul, and they was like, man, come on, get out of here. You already know you call your own fouls. And he was like, nah, you gonna give my son his foul or whatever the case may be. And, they was kind of on some shit like whatever. So I guess some sort of words must have been exchanged or something like that, and shit done escalated and whatever the case may be. And next thing you know, dude say he coming back with his rifle, like I don't know if it's a sniper rifle or whatever. I'm sure I'm getting a few of the details mixed up from the story. Because like I said, my brother told me this years later, but I guess whatever was happening, he actually came back. And, the son was trying to tell them like, man, y'all really need to get out of here. Like, my father really has a gun in the house. Like, he's tripping. And, they was like, man, whatever. We're not going nowhere. And dude actually came back with the rifle and they was running. Everybody was scattering, getting out of there, whatever the case may be. And I guess my brother broke one way and his other friend broke one way and the shot let off. And he actually blew the dude's head off right there in the middle of the street. And, I guess where I caught my brother at when he was coming back, and had told me he forgot his basketball. He didn't really forget his basketball. He was going back to, I guess, check or whatever the case may be. But, I would have had no clue shit like that was going. I was a child, man. You know what I'm saying? The world was one big adventure. I didn't know what my brother was going through. And of course, my brother wasn't going to tell my parents what was going on. There was all types of shit going on back then that I found out about later on, and it's crazy how the world can coexist in different ways. But my brother always did a really, really good job of keeping us completely separated from another world that he was in, which allowed us to preserve our imagination. You know what I'm saying? And I say our, like I'm speaking for my brother now, but I don't know if my brother had the same experience. I don't want to speak for him. But for me, what I would say is that he definitely allowed me to preserve my imagination and my innocence. No matter what he was going through, he never brought that home with him, at least towards me. I thought he was just as happy as anything else, and I appreciate that because, there's a lot of big brothers out here who won't do it that way. There's a lot of big brothers out here who will say, you need to toughen up. You need to be introduced to what the world really is, especially because everybody thought I was a little soft growing up, Maybe he could have been trying to toughen me up and taking the wrong route, but instead he protected me and kept me away from all of that shit easily, So I mean, hey, really shout out to him for that, because that innocence that he preserved allowed me to go on and have that many more adventures as a child, Everything was an adventure to me, everything. My father would go and pick up Redskins tickets. We had season tickets to the Redskins, all growing up since my grandfather, I guess they passed down through the family. And my grandfather must have had like a frat brother or something, who, or I don't know if it was a frat brother or somebody, but basically they used to buy tickets together. When he had one ticket and his friend had the other ticket that was right next to him. And I feel like his name was like Mr. Bryant or something like that, or O'Brien or something. And he had the baddest house. I mean, he had the biggest, most beautiful, luxurious ass house I had ever seen. And that was on the Gold Coast, where I told that story about how my father took me out to the Gold Coast and showed me around and all this type of stuff. And I used to be so excited to just like go in there and just look at like, wow, like this guy must be rich, like, and we used to go and pick up the ticket from him all the time. I guess, I don't know if he was still paying for it or if it was just in his name, but either way, I didn't know the business of it. I was a child. I just knew we was going to the Redskins game. We'd always have to go pick up the tickets and I would ride out with my father. And it was just a huge adventure being at this guy's house because I was just like, yo, I felt like I was on some Scarface shit or something. Like, wow, this guy has all the money in the world. And who knows, as an adult, it might not have been that big, but to me, it was so huge, you know? Everything was big to me. When we lived in Brentwood, which was that same, like I said, it was kind of hood. I remember my parents, their room was up in the attic, I guess, essentially, you know, like their room was upstairs, separated from the rest of the house. And then we had the rooms that was on the main level, and then there was a basement. The basement didn't really have any bedrooms. It was just, you know, open space. But our kitchen was in the basement. And I'll never forget, I had a secret hiding space in there that I ended up, it's funny, I wrote about this in a writing prompt for one of my script writing classes. They said, talk about a secret hiding place you had as a kid. And this was it. Like, you would go up the stairs to my parents' room, and there was a separate door that separated their bedroom from, like, I guess, whatever the other part of the room that had, like, clothes and stuff or whatever, like, kind of storage was. But there was a little secret door that only I was probably big enough to fit in, that you could, it was like a crawl space, basically. And I could sneak into my parents' room by going through this little door that only I could fit through and crawling on my hands and knees and going to the other door, and I would pop up in their room. And I remember it was like a little secret cave to me, and it looked like there was cotton candy hanging from the ceilings and the walls. And you know, as an adult, I realized that that was insulation, and I probably shouldn't have been breathing in none of that shit. But as a kid, I loved the way it smelled because it smelled like a secret cave or something like that. And it just made me think of my parents' room. So sometimes I would sit up there with little books and I'd take a flashlight or my Game Boy or something. And, you know, if nobody could find me in the house, I was in my little secret hiding space and they really couldn't find me. I would pop up on my parents and go, boo, you know. And that was it was a big world. It was a big world, you know. I would take the laundry basket because my parents' steps were real steep. And I would sit in the laundry basket and slide down the steps. Reckless as hell. Like it was a little cart or something like that. And yeah, I don't know, man. It was a fun experience. That's what I would say. It was a fun experience. And that type of stuff led to the adventures that came with like being older, you know. I ended up going to high school, and you know, by the time I was like a senior in high school, my parents just kind of let me do whatever I wanted. Like it was just kind of like, you know, as long as you're in the house by a certain time, whatever. So just like being a little kid, like a first to second grader or whatever, I was out here. I was all over the city, at everybody's house, in everybody's fridge, just chilling, feet up, kicking it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was no responsibilities. It's crazy. Like, we didn't have no, I probably maybe had like a little $5 or $10 in my pocket at the most, if I was lucky in certain instances. But I remember every single day after school, I would either like go to my best friend Deja's house or her aunt's house, and we would just watch random ass shows like Man versus Food or something, or you know, fucking she loved like Discovery Channel and like random stuff like that. And it was like a fun thing, but it was more fun to see like who was home. Like we would be at random playgrounds just chilling and talking on the swings and shit like that. Like just randomly calling around and see like, yo, where you at? Type shit. Or I don't even think we used to call. We probably just used to pull up and knock on doors, you know? But we'd be in anybody's house all through late hours and shit like that. And somewhere around like 7, I just had to make sure I was back at the school, because when my parents was getting off of work, they would come and pick me up from the school or something. Or I would go to my grandmother's house, you know, who was right up the street. I'd walk there, but a lot of times I would go and drop off my stuff at my grandmother's house. I'd be right back outside on the go, you know. Didn't worry about my homework or nothing like that, unless it was football season, you know. But it was just, once again, it was exciting, you know, like there was so much to be explored, you know, especially because like I was in a new city. I was in Greenbelt. I wasn't from there. I was living in New Carrollton. So everywhere that there was to explore was like a new area. And it was like being introduced to something new every single time. I love that. I really, really, really love that, you know? And I think there's like what's the word I'm looking for? Like an element of like nostalgia that exists in the memories that you share with your friends in that kind of way, like inside jokes that are developed and music that you listen to and movies. And, you know, I remember we used to be on YouTube all the time. YouTube really kind of popped off when we was in high school, and we would watch shit like Short Bus Shorty. I don't know if y'all remember that. It was like a a parody shit with Soulja Boy, Gucci Mane, and Waka Flocka. And Short Bus Shorty, Short Bus Shorty, Short Bus Shorty. But it was like the funniest thing to us. I don't know why it was so stupid, but it was so funny. It was so funny, you know. It was fun. That's all I would say, is it was fun. And I guess going back even before, you know, the high school time and everything like that, like I think about the adventures of the little things, you know, like I remember specifically being at like my grandparents' house, and you know, my parents still had rooms at their parents' house, you know. I don't know, it wasn't like it was preserved as their room or whatever, but like they would tell us the stories, like, you know, like, yeah, this used to be my room, and then this was your Uncle Sean's room, or this is my room, and this was where your Aunt Michelle and Aunt Debbie were, or whatever, you know. And you could really imagine what it was like, because there was always an old feeling to the room, and there was always still like a bed in there or something like that, you know. And I would just be thinking to myself, like, damn, like you really used to live right here in this room. And you would see old posters and stuff. Like sometimes I would go in the closet and I would see little things. Like I remember one time I opened up my father's closet in my grandfather's house, and there was an old electric football game up there. And it didn't work or anything like that, but I just was so interested. Like, what is this? It's like electric football. It's literally like the little thing vibrates and the little pieces move and stuff. And I guess based off of certain things, you get like first downs or whatever. And it just looked like the lamest thing ever. It was like, oh my God, you guys were existing in the Stone Age. What the fuck? Who wants to do that? I'd rather play Madden 96 or whatever the hell I was playing at the time. But it was just so funny because it was like, yo, like, I can't believe I'm here in a space that you used to exist in as a child, you know, like that in itself is exciting, you know. I remember the adventures of field trips, like school field trips. Oh, they was different, you know, and I didn't go on many. I'm not going to lie. I never really had the opportunities to go on school field trip. I feel like we moved so much or something. Like I was always changing schools. I never got the opportunity to do the good stuff. Like in PG County, everybody used to go to Camp Schmidt in I think it was 5th grade. And like I moved right before 5th grade, Camp Schmidt. I remember when I was in private school, you know, in Catholic school, whatever, the 8th grade class had went to like Canada 2 years before or something like that. And then the 7th grade class had went to New York. And then they couldn't do New York anymore because 9/11 happened. And then they were supposed to do Canada, but I switched schools. So I missed the class trip to Canada. I was pissed about that. I was like, yo, what the fuck is that? That's not even fair. And then I went to Greenbelt Middle, and they were so bad when I went back to public school, we didn't even have a graduation. They had a little bullshit ceremony. They said we didn't deserve one. I mean, kids was kicking teachers down the steps and all types of wild shit. It was wild. It was like the hood. I mean, it wasn't the hood because it was Greenbelt, but I mean, like in comparison to coming from private school, it was the hood. Like, so I was like, God damn, bro, I done missed out on the adventures. I wanted to travel, So the little field trips were worth a lot to me. Going to like the Aerospace Museum or like, going and looking at dinosaur fossils and stuff like that at they called it I think it was like the Owen Science Center or something like that, which I ended up finding out was like right outside of Duval or something like that, Duval High School when I got older. But it seemed so far as a kid because you would get on a little yellow cheese bus and go over, and you didn't really know where anything was yet, but it was right up the street from my house. I had no clue. Or like going to the what's that thing called? It's like a big theater that when you look up, like your seats can lean back and everything, and you look up and you see constellations. It's like they recreate the stars, and they do these seminars where they talk about the stars and the galaxies and all of this stuff and how we all got here and all this shit and the Big Bang Theory. And man, that shit was cool. And they had this other thing called Colors where they used to do like little interactive theater or whatever. Like anytime it was any type of field trip that was an opportunity to leave school, I was excited about it. And I'm not sure if your school did this. I know my schools did. This is the super nostalgia, right? Going back to elementary school. So at Hyattsville, we had something called Blue and Gold Day. It was so cool because there was always like two second grade classes and 2 third grade classes or whatever the case may be, right? And let's say, for example, I know I had somebody named Miss K for 3rd grade. I don't remember who my 2nd grade teacher was. Oh, I think her name was Miss Dunbar. And then my kindergarten teacher was Miss Eichbaum. I'll never forget it because Miss Eichbaum was the nicest lady I had ever met. Seemingly, because, whatever. We're kids. Of course, they got to be nice to us. She could have been an asshole in real life. Who knows? Not to get dark here. But, yeah, I just remember they had Blue and Gold Day, and it was at the end of the school year. And, there was a 3A and a 3B. That was like the 2 classes that was broken up to, I guess, because there was too many kids to have in one class. And 3A may have been gold and 3B was blue. So on Blue and Gold Day, you wore all yellow or all blue based off of which section you was in. And we would all walk in this really long line to the rec center, or the playground or whatever the case may be. All of us together would walk to Magruder Park. And we all had to kind of stay in a line and hold hands or whatever the case may be to walk there safely. But it was like a day of events. They had everything from like basketball and water balloon fights and tug of war and all these different things. It was wild. It was, even just saying the name Magruder Park just now just gave me a little bit of chills thinking back, like, damn, that was really the shit, Magruder Park. That was wild. And I thought Magruder Park was so cool because they had all of these little bike paths and stuff like that, that connected the city to each other. You could really probably bike from Hyattsville to College Park, Maryland or whatever if you followed that path long enough. But they had a football field out there and the biggest playground I knew at the time. And on the inside, they had like air hockey and all types of stuff. And we used to go to Magruder Park for aftercare from school. But, man, that shit was just, it was dope. It was dope. It was like, that in itself was a huge adventure, just Blue and Gold Day or, whatever your class competition day, you have relay races and stuff like that. It was just something different that you got excited about. And I just remember using my imagination so much as a kid, even as a teenager, and sometimes I wonder, like, where did it go? Like, at what point did my imagination start to dissipate? Because I was a little kid for a long time. I mean, even in high school, I was probably much more of a little kid than the average high schooler because I was so goofy. I was doofy as hell. You know what I'm saying? The big stupid afro. I used to crack jokes. Everything was joke time, and it was just so genuine. I was so innocent, but it was just fun. Like, me and my cousin were funny. Like, that was our thing. And the only thing I can honestly attribute this shit to is like liking girls. It's like, by the time that I got my first girlfriend, it was like all of my time and attention and focus went into like, I want to be a good boyfriend. I like her so much. I love her. You know, like, I didn't want to do anything other than talk to this girl. That was it. You know, I talked to her all day. I talked to her all night. We was in Yahoo chat. We was in text messages. We was on the phone. We was boo loving, caked up. All of that. Puppy love at its finest, you know? And when you break up, it's like the worst heartbreak you can ever imagine. It's like everything that you thought was happy in life. Because, you know, up until that point, everything's pretty happy. You play video games with your cousin and you go off into the world and observe things and all this other type of shit. But everything's happy. And then something detrimentally sad happens. And don't get me wrong, because obviously between my parents' divorce and stuff like that, like, I had experienced hard times and down moments, but it was never anything enough that would make me feel like, you know, so like, damn, I'm sad or I'm depressed or I have anxiety. But breaking up with my first love, oh my God, my heart, my fucking heart. It's funny to think back to now because it was so small. But the impact of it in the moment, it felt like the biggest thing ever. We had dated for like almost a year. We came just short of a year. It was 11 months. And it's like, I remember the embarrassment of like people saying like, y'all were so cute. I thought y'all were going to get married. Like, it's high school. We're fucking 15 and 16 years old. Like, we're not going to get married. Let's be honest. But in your head, you're thinking to yourself like, I know, I thought so too. I just want her back. And from there, then you go through the process of like trying to rebound. And then from trying to rebound, then you're trying to just be okay being alone. And then you're trying to find new girls to like and pay attention to, and just something else organic to kind of fill that empty space. Because now you felt what it feels like to feel that love for somebody, and you want that again in a different way or something. And, you know, that creates a ripple effect. Like, I remember I wasn't hanging out with Rashid as much, and then he had kind of got a girlfriend, and he went through the same thing, and then he wasn't hanging out with me as much, and then we kind of had to get back to basics. Like, yo, I love you, cuz, like, fuck all these women. Let's just fuck with each other. You my man. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't. And it was always easier said than done, because as much as we was cool with each other and we loved hanging out with each other and stuff like that, anytime a girl would come around, it's like, and it's more on me than him. It's like I would get distracted, and next thing you know, that would take priority. And I don't know, between that and school and sports and everything else, and around that same time, sports just wasn't as fun anymore. It was like a job, you know? It's like, I like playing football because it was fun, but it was never that serious. It was just, but in high school, it was like a job. It was a hard job too. I played quarterback, and it was a lot of social pressure. It's just a lot of different things going on, but I feel like slowly but surely, my imagination just started to dissipate. And I think it's the social pressures to be cool. It's the social pressures to lose your virginity. It's the social pressures to start dabbling in things like alcohol and drugs. It's the social pressure to be hard, you know? I didn't really delve in none of those. I didn't fuck with no drugs. I didn't lose my virginity till I was like 19 by choice. I had all the opportunity in the world. Don't get it wrong. I just never wanted to do it. I felt like I couldn't handle it. People was acting dumb over sex, and I didn't want to be one of them people. And I definitely wasn't messing with no drugs or nothing like that. I was an athlete, you know. I wasn't really with none of the shits, but even still, it's like my imagination started to fade. And sometimes I think about my grandmother because she used to say, there are demons in the world. There are people in the world who want to dim your light. You know, like I have a light, a very specific spiritual glow, and they want to take away from that light and dim your spiritual glow. And you have to always protect that light. I never knew what she meant when I was younger. But I know now, you know, it's that pure, innocent, almost like naive, positive outlook that like expects the best out of everything in the world. And somewhere along the lines, as you become an adult, you're riddled with disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. I remember taking super long walks to school early as hell in the morning, leaving the house at like 6 a.m. and school didn't start until like 7:45. And I would walk all the way from New Carrollton to Greenbelt to go to school sometimes just to clear my head because my parents was going through their divorce and shit like that. And I was frustrated. And, you know, it was all types of shit, man. But I think the combination of all of these different things just slowly takes away from that innocence. And those big wide eyes that you have, I always look at like how my eyes used to be so big and bright and wide, and people say, you have such pretty eyes, this and that. And I wonder what happened to that because nobody says anything about my eyes now. And I think it's just like the process of my eyes slowly closing to normal is a visual representation of me not being so wide-eyed and naive. You know, it's like being able to see the world for what it is. And how can you not glare at the world? How can you not glance at it with a side eye? Because the world is evil in so many different ways. People are negative. People don't have positive outlooks. And only now am I reclaiming that. Like, I've always been optimistic, but now I'm starting to reclaim that idle existence in terms of energy by manifesting the things that I want and affirming the type of energy and company that I want around me unapologetically. It feels good to be getting back to that, but also sometimes I wonder when did it go? How did it go? And my goal for the next generation, my nieces and friends, children, and people who I may build a relationship with over the years who look up to me as a positive black male role model, I want to do everything in my power to preserve that wide-eyed innocence for as long as I possibly can until they have to be introduced to the world for what it is. Because they deserve that joy that comes with being a child. I experienced real joy in being a child. And even though I started to become introduced to things a little early, it was probably right on time. And I'm sure I had friends who was introduced way earlier than that, so I'm blessed. But man, I really sometimes think back like I've lived a full life. And time don't wait for a motherfucker because, nigga, I feel like I was just 16 yesterday. And I'm about to be 30. 16 was 14 years ago. That's crazy. I feel like I'm the same. I feel like I'm that same kid right now. But I got my whole own ass apartment, car, bills, and at one point recently was imagining that I would be starting a family as of next year. Time waits for nobody. Don't take it for granted, you know. Embrace the now. You'll never be able to go back in the past, but you can embrace the now and create nostalgic memories to come for the future. And that's where I'm at. Right now, I'm not trying to think about all of these adventures of the past and just say, wow, life sure was good. Sucks now to be an adult. No, I'm using that as motivation. I'm really about to start traveling. That's what's next on my list. I'm going to document the whole process. It has to do with the film that I'm writing right now, but it's so spiritually imperative for me to follow through with this. I'm going to get a passport. I'm going to be just as curious and excited as I was as a little kid in researching about places around the world to visit. Save up the money, and I'm going to go. I'm about to travel for the next 2 or 3 years and really just go as many places as I can and experience things organically, try out different cultures and different foods and dress the dress of the locals and try to learn to talk the talk if I can. I mean, I'm channeling my inner child and my inner curiosity and giving myself permission to go explore and use my imagination again and not make things so serious, because life is so serious and so many people are trying to heal from traumas and all these different kind of things, which I encourage. This whole podcast is a process of me healing, but a part of my healing is tapping into my inner child and not making things so serious and having pure intentions and just having fun, making mistakes and being okay with making mistakes and just being excited to make new friends and fall in love all over again and just see the world in a whole new different kind of way, you know? Really taking the time to get rest. And I'm about to get another video camera. I used to have this video camera that I carried with me everywhere in high school. And I'm about to get me another one and just literally record everything and document everything, because that's what I do. And that's what's fun. And that's a part of my adventure in documenting the journey and the experience along the way, so I can go back and remember those nostalgic moments and the home video clips that I saved. So if you're listening and you identify with this feeling of missing that adventure-filled, optimistic, wide-eyed excitement of what the world was, and I encourage you to dig through your memory bank and find out what those nostalgic moments were and appreciate them, affirm them, and go out and create some brand new memories and really tap into that inner child. You know? Until next time, you already know what it is. It's back in the days.
I sit and wish I was a kid again. Back in the days when I was just a little nigga, I looked up to my bigger